You know how some people say like, oh, just moderation. You can have a Snickers a day or whatever.
Yeah.
Some people, unfortunately, they just can't do moderation. Like it just triggers them to want to eat more and more and more of it. So that's why I utilize medicines to take care of it.
It sounds ridiculous sometimes when you hear, someone will be like, well, maybe you're just thirsty. And if you're a big boy, like, you're like, dude, I don't want fucking water. Like,
no,
I want to fucking eat. You're like, I want pizza.
Yeah.
When are they necessary? Because some people that in the audience that perk their ears are like, ooh, there's medicine for this. There's there's a way I can speed this up, right?
And this is where I just go, okay, biologically, there's probably some signal that's pretty strong in your brain. Why don't we use a drug that basically blocks that signal? It's hard to people are like, well, fruit has fructose in it, so it's going to make you fat. It's like, nobody's gaining weight from eating fruit, unless I did have one patient say they couldn't stop eating frozen grapes. I suppose that might count if you can.
Those are delicious.
It's good. I know you know a lot of the things that go on metabolically, psychologically with individuals who are obese. Is that actually a choice that people are making? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of people that are like, of course it's a choice, but I would posit this: most people go through life subconsciously.
When it gets to that point, I kind of would be like, well, shit, maybe this person is addicted to the food.
You'll see this very staunch evidence-based fitness people be like, there's no such thing as food addiction. You're just eating too much. And I'm like, have you ever had like Doritos? Like, what are you talking about?
Hey, we got our boy Russell in the house. Russell,
Thank you. Yes.
Hop on over here, buddy.
I've had people say, well, hey, like, I've been told you shouldn't be on the church drama team because you're fat.
I think it's hard for people to gain perspective, and you've given me wonderful perspective because we've had so many conversations about it. But like, my urges are they're different than yours.
Like, I feel appetite in the back of my head. It's like a tingle. It's a drive. It's a drive. Like, you're stressed. You're stressed. You need to eat. If you're stressed, you need to eat. It's broken.
Yeah, how long has it been? You lost about 60 pounds or so, and how long has that taken you? Because that's always the question. How long did it take?
I know. I mean, it's been like almost a year and a half.
Yeah.
But what I have gained is so much more mobility.
So you thought you had time and you really didn't.
So to these young people that think it's okay to like glorify obesity and to like normalize it, being obese is not good for your body. Breaks down your joints, shortens your lifespan. Sometimes, yeah, sure, the fight is like, I just don't want to like pig out, eat French fries, whatever. A lot of times it's, oh, you should eat. That would fix your stress. It's wild. It's insane. And it's a battle that sometimes you don't want to fight.
Powerproject family, how's it going? I know that we have been talking about being less fat, but at the end of the day, we love to eat, and we like the food we eat to taste good. That's why we partnered with Legendary Tasty Pastries. As I speak to you with a full mouth, these have 20 grams of protein and 5 grams of net carbs per serving. This is the blueberry. This is one of my favorite. Hot fudge is not on the table, but it's also one of my favorite. But they have tons of different flavors. So on any diet you're trying to do, you can fit this into your diet without going off plan. But,
big old butt. 3 butts.
It's not nearly as bad as like Oreos or Doritos. It's actually not bad at all.
No, it's not bad at all.
It's not bad at all. So seriously, if you guys haven't gone down the rabbit hole of the Legendary Tasty Pastries, you fucking I love doing this because I get an excuse to eat on mic. You have to. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yeah, the thing is, it's like you'll nail each take perfectly, but you'll purposely mess up so you can keep eating more tasty pastries.
Dude.
No, but seriously, guys, 180 calories for 20 grams of protein. I dare you to find another protein snack that tastes this good and has macros as good as that. You guys got to head over to eatlegendary.com and at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save 20% off. Again, eatlegendary.com. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Yeah, buddy.
I'm ready.
No way.
I'm ready.
Get out of here.
I was on my run this morning, and you know what I was practicing?
Nasal breathing.
Maybe. I do practice that a lot. Today I was actually running. I was trying to run faster today, so nasal breathing was out the door pretty quick on today's run. But I was actually practicing heel striking. I know, right?
Why?
Well, just because I don't think anybody knows what they're talking about.
Okay.
I just think like, I don't know, people need to think about I guess people need to think about their communication sometimes. Like I even promote kind of like to run on your toes. I think it's a good place to start for most people is to run on your forefoot. Like, but basically when you're running, I think truthfully, you're just like landing on your foot. There's not a great way to describe it other than you're just kind of landing on your foot because you're trying to absorb the crash each time by just landing with as much of your foot as you could.
Yeah.
We're not, and so like if I say heel striking, it's just like clickbaity, I guess, but like I'm not intentionally trying to slam my heel into the ground. What I was working on is like my stride is kind of short. You know, I've talked about this before. I'm trying to open up that stride length a little bit. And if you open up the stride length a little bit, one of the quickest ways to get there is just to kind of slightly land on the heel and then roll some of that energy to like the forefoot. So that's what I was working on this morning. And it was just felt different. I felt way faster. It felt really good. I don't know, like, you know, if I do it for a long time, I don't know how that will feel, but I do think that when you're running, when you're lifting, why not try a rounded back deadlift? Why not try a stiff leg deadlift where your back is totally flat? Why not just try these different things and move in some different positions?
To ask a question, sir, to add a potential asterisk to it, when you were doing the heel striking, you weren't doing those in the Vivos, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was thinking like some of the
I got a spongy shoe. I was wearing an Ultra, and it's the springy one.
Yeah.
And so it's made for that.
Because I remember when I went on the run with you, I was wearing those same Ultras, and as my endurance started to go, and as I got a little bit, let's say, just like lax with my gait because I was tired. There started being a few times I was heel striking, but I was like, oh, I don't feel that pressure because that shoe gave me enough padding to strike safely. So if you guys want to try that and you're using the Vivo trail runners or whatever, you just got to be careful about how hard you strike the ground, because if you strike your ground in actual barefoot shoes, like heel strike it, you'll feel that.
Oh yeah, 100%. And you know, I'm not sticking my foot way out and then just smashing my heel, because that would energy kind of go up into the knee and all that kind of stuff. But I've been following a bunch of different people and just checking out different styles of running. And one guy was like, "Hey, you can kind of heel strike, and here's how you kind of do it." So I was like, "Oh, let me just play with that. Let me see, like, because, I don't know, you just get caught in these like limiting beliefs. You have people your whole life tell you can't do something. You don't think you can do it. There's that story of the elephant, you know, an elephant's little, the circus elephant, like it's just tied to the circus tent, and obviously it could pull away from it at any time. But as it gets older, it doesn't realize that it has the power just to fucking pull away from that thing. So
Not that I've been like the most athletic person in the room, but like when I was the most athletic, I didn't even know that you could land on your toes when running.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Yeah,
I only heel striked my entire life through all sports, through everything I ever did. And then now that I'm jacked up, I'm trying to land on my toes, and you know, it's a new stimulus. So my calves and my knees and everything's super sore from our run like 5 days ago.
Yeah.
Sorry I didn't text you back. I was in the middle of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, but my legs are still sore, but I'm just trying to figure it out, period. So, you know, I'm just interested to hear what you discover in regards to
and that's all it is. It's just discover. It's just like messing around. You know, that's all it is. I'm not like advocating like, hey man, I think that you should really strike your heel when you're running. Yeah. Definitely not saying that. I'm just saying, hey, play around with it, find out for yourself. And some of these guys and girls that are heavy, people that are real heavy, you always hear people say not to run, but it's like, how does anybody know but you? Like, go try it. You know, like obviously if you have a condition, if you have diabetes and you have issues with your feet, then by all means, be cautious, be careful. But if you don't think that you have anything like that and you feel up just to do something a little bit more than a walk and get a little air underneath your body, that's a fucking jog. Yeah. That's a little bit more than, you know. Anyway, excited to have today's guest on. We got Dr. Nadolsky on today. And did I get that right eventually?
Nadolsky, yeah.
And he works with, you know, a lot of people that I think when people are talking about diet in the fitness space, there's all this like infighting about, you know, the carnivore diet versus the paleo diet versus a vegan diet, and it's all this like little precise stuff, and it's like, oh, that guy's not carnivore because he eats fruit, and that guy's I can't believe Mark eats rice sometimes. Like, holy fuck, man.
Hardcore carnivore has sugar in it. It's not carnivore seasoning.
Right. And then you got the keto group, and you have the fasting people, and we got all these different people that are nitpicking these diets. But Dr. Nadolsky, why am I having such a hard time saying that? Spencer Nadolsky he works with a lot of people that are very heavy. And I think that it's a community that needs to be served, and it's a community that probably needs recommendations and information probably given to them in a different way, because they're just in a different position. Like, I talk often about being big and being 330, and I was obese by all measures, by whatever, you measure my stomach, measure my body weight, all these different things. But I was also a lifter, and I was also somebody that I was never the fat kid. I was never like, I was a bigger kid, but I don't know what it feels like to be the fat kid in 7th grade or 5th grade. I don't know what it's like to be like picked on the bus and made fun of, and to be under the scrutiny that a lot of big people face. I mean, imagine being someone like our friend Russell, and the grocery store, like everything is something, right? Everything is like, you probably feel like people are just staring at you 24/7. If you go to the grocery store, you probably think, man, people are going to be really, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like even when I go, I'm thinking like people are probably going to be kind of judgy on like what I get. If you roll through and it's a cheat day and you get a bunch of ice cream and shit, you're kind of like, I don't know, it's a little awkward exchange at the checkout. You're like, this isn't all for me.
Yeah. Do you ever get the like, you can eat that?
Oh yeah. And I'm always like, nah, this is for my wife.
So I went to In-N-Out as I normally do, so that's not a big shock. But actually, somebody had recognized me, and like there I am carrying like 4 or 5 boxes. Well, it was like 3, but I was just like, fuck, and then bag full of fries, and I was like, my son, he eats 2 Flying Dutchmen now. He's just like, holy shit! And so that was like a celebration, but at the same time, I was thinking like, this looks pretty bad.
Dude, I had 11 boxes of pizza. I was in Sebastopol, California, and I was picking up pizza on my way back from a gym to like go bring to like my family. I'm like juggling it, and I'm like trying to open the Tesla at the same time, and someone's like, "Yo, Smelly!" And I'm like, these aren't for me.
Like, no, I get that all the time. Whoever this smelly guy is.
And the guy's like, let's take a picture. Let me put the pizza away.
All right, let's let the doctor in. He's been patiently waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
My words are all fucked up today.
What happened?
I was running too fast.
Do you have mushrooms this morning?
I had a little bit of kratom.
That'll straighten you out.
Man, my man's hair is just
looking good.
What's up?
Ooh, sounding good too.
Where the hell you guys been?
Nsima's fucking around over here.
Nice.
Yeah, blame it on somebody.
It's all my fault. Blame the black guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well.
Great to have you on the show this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, if you couldn't get out there to LA, I'm over here in the sticks in North Carolina. So with a new baby. So
congrats.
3 kids makes it tough. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Fuck.
Yeah, we're in Sacramento. We're north of
Sacramento.
LA.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in California. I was in San Diego for a while, so I could have made it
at some point
over a year ago, but not anymore.
I love the message that you put out. I really appreciate like a lot of people that are just really just trying to simplify, right? Like there's so much confusion. People want to kind of make a lot of this out to be way more complicated than it needs to be a lot of times. But I guess sometimes it does get complicated because there is so much conflicting information. And when we're talking to particular groups, there might be different messages, like someone who's just starting a fitness routine or just starting a journey on having a nutrition intervention. That might look totally different than someone who's preparing for a bodybuilding show or something like that, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, most people are they have some semblance of what to do, but they get so confused over all the different mixed messages, carbs, fat, is it hormones, calories, all these different things to where, and because it's so hard and they failed so often or didn't respond, I should say, they just get desperate. They're in a lot of pain, So they'll do anything and just listen to anybody that can hopefully get them results. So simplifying the message and just sticking to the scientific principles of what we know, I think is the best bet. And then beyond there are certain strategies that help you stick to those principles that may be kind of funky, but at least if you understand the principles, it makes it easier.
Well, one thing I'm kind of curious about is we had Dan Garner here yesterday, and one of his big things that he was talking about when it comes to when he deals with individuals. And you can't hear? Oh, he can't hear me, Andrew.
Huh.
Yeah, hold on. You should be able to hear him in a second, I guess.
No, can you hear any of us?
Can you hear me? You hear me? Hear what I'm saying?
I can't hear you now.
Oh, okay. He can't hear. He
Can
can't
you hear me?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
I could hear you just in the beginning,
Okay.
Yeah, literally nothing changed.
but now all of a sudden,
I think Andrew hit that weird button.
I wasn't touching anything.
Oh, you weren't?
No, I don't
Yeah,
think so.
well, you touching yourself, I bet.
I was like, his hands looks kind of oily over there.
can you hear me now?
Suspicious.
We can still hear you.
We can hear you. We can hear
All right.
you.
What happened with the mic and the
It's,
headphones? Supposed to be all professional here.
Was that a
Apparently-
fake microphone?
so it might have just switched if you like check the microphone setting.
Oh, like Bluetooth, some shit.
Yeah, like
Yeah, because the mic sounded good.
it did sound really good.
Really? Does it sound bad now?
Yeah, kind of.
It sounded better.
It's better with the
Hold on,
mic.
hold on.
Yeah, we got time. You can.
Yeah, there's no rush. This is all editable.
We got time, but he's a fucking doctor.
That's true.
He
He's
does
a
have a
doctor.
heart out. Yeah. What time do you have to be out by?
Nah, he's we're
2:45. Is that all right?
yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Hold on.
I don't know what 2:45 in
It doesn't matter.
California.
We'll get it
How's it
figured
now?
out. We'll put him on the.
Why is it now? I can't
Oh.
hear you. Oh, you know why? Okay, hold on 1 second. It's the
Got to close those windows, bro. What you watching
It's
over
the-
there?
It might have been something about this.
Something about Mary,
The speaker is going through.
the microphone.
Oh.
There you go.
The speaker goes through this. I don't know what happened. If it happens again, it must have to do with the headphones. Not.
You sound great, so we're good.
Yeah,
Thanks. All right. Cool. Sorry. What were you saying, buddy?
you can hear us now. Okay, cool.
Now I can hear you.
We had Dan Garner on the podcast yesterday, and Dan works with a lot of like very a higher caliber of athletes, like very prominent individuals, right? But his big thing is he gets saliva, blood work, a stool test. What else?
So anything
Yeah, a
that
lot of
comes
blood.
out.
A lot of
Semen.
blood work.
Siemens. One of them.
Yeah, potentially semen. But he was really adamant that people really need to get stool tests to see what might be going on in their gut. And I was curious how much importance you put upon that, because when I look at your content, it's like a big aspect of it is this, be in a caloric deficit, be consistent over time. It's like the big simple things, right?
Yeah.
But along with that, because that's obviously necessary, how big of an importance do you put on gut health and potentially people getting a stool test to see what's going on?
These things are important. However, how are they going to change our management? What outcome from one of these tests is going to change what we do? Will it predict how someone will respond? I think that's the biggest thing. And honestly, if I'm going to bet $100,000 or whatever high amount of money right now, I would bet the farm that there is no test right now that's going to change our outcome in terms of this whole precision nutrition or precision medicine thing right now that's going on. So you see these people promoting stool tests, and I've never seen any study or any difference clinically to where this is going to change what I do. So like, for example, some people will say, hey, I always joke about a DNA test. I joke about DNA tests. Hey, based on your DNA, you should be eating like this. So I always say, based on your DNA, you should be eating a calorie deficit. You should probably be eating something that keeps you fuller for longer. And nothing about the DNA tests, or as far as I can see in these stool tests, change what we do. So I do think it's possible, though, in the future, based on some of these things, we will be able to modify, but I just don't think we're there yet in terms of sensitivity and understanding with these tests.
I think a big factor is, look, man, if you're 40, 50, 60 pounds overweight, we don't need to go through your poop to find out what's going on. Like if you're 40, 50, 60 pounds overweight, you're in a compromising spot, you're in a bad position. We know, we all have friends that continually say, like, I'm starting on Monday and I'm going to, get into this caloric deficit. I'm going to do all these things. And they're well-meaning and they really do care, and they are training. Like I have a lot of friends that are training and putting in a good effort. But the effort that they try to, the thing that they try to put themselves into is a little too hard. And then 3 or 4 days later, they end up binging, or 5 days later, or 7 days later. And it's hard for them to see because they're like, man, I'm working so hard. They'll say, I'm doing everything, but I can't seem to lose a pound. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you are doing a lot. Like you're fucking going all out, but maybe that's the problem. So maybe let's see if you can put your diet at like a 7 out of 10. And let's just do that for a really fucking long time. Imagine if we did that for 20 days, which doesn't seem like a long time, but for someone to make it 20 days without a cheat is a miracle for some people.
Yeah, I think that's just promoting this idea of consistency is better than perfection, and I think that's great coaching right there.
Well, on that note, when it does come to because a lot of people, when they do start a diet or they start any type of new protocol, if there is a time where, like, let's say one night they choose to have a dessert, they beat themselves up, or they make a bit of a mistake, they beat themselves up, they're all or nothing, right? And we know how this mindset can stop an individual from just getting back on the next day, being consistent. They'll continue to make mistakes, but patience and consistency, they'll get to that goal. Now, you've probably dealt with a lot of people who have that all or nothing mentality when it does come to their diet. How do you handle them? How do you help them understand that it's not about being 100% all the time?
Yeah, the analogy that I use, there's a few analogies. So it'd be like you're in grade school or whatever, and you get a C or a D on one quiz. And it's like, well, you still have the rest of the homework and tests and other quizzes to get a B or even an A at some point. One little thing isn't going to make or break your overall goals. Now, the other analogy would be like, let's say you pop one tire on your car, and it would be like, let's just pop the rest of them because, like, let's just go stab them with a screwdriver, whatever. It's a similar analogy, and it takes a long time for people to understand that. I think we all do it in other situations as well. I'm just trying to think of different things. It's like, whatever, I might as well. I had one beer. Why not just have a few more? Who cares? Alcohol, any, other substances. You screwed up once. Well, I might as well just go with it. And kind of explaining these principles of just overall, like, average consistency, it matters most. One little blip above your calorie balance or energy balance doesn't really matter. Average it out over a week, and there you go. So that's generally what I do. I utilize a lot of medicines for weight loss, though, and so if there's this recurrent theme of, like, they just can't stop themselves from eating whatever desserts at night, and it's not conducive to them being able to lose weight. You know how some people say, like, oh, just moderation. You can have a Snickers a day or whatever. Yeah. Some people, unfortunately, they just can't do moderation. Like, it just triggers them to want to eat more and more and more of it. So that's where I utilize medicines to take care of it. But from a mindset standpoint, getting people not to beat themselves up after one little thing is, it's hard to do, but it's doable.
How much, I guess, communication do you have to have with somebody to be able to help them through this? Because it seems like it would take an enormous amount of communication. Like, hey, you did the same thing last week. Like, let's just, when you do mess up, let's see if we can get back on track. Does that take a long time to work on that?
Yeah, it does. And it can burn out the coach or the physician or whoever's, dietitian, whoever's implementing the plan or habits. And sometimes it takes months to just change the angle of how you're sending the message, really get them to open up about it and talk about it. It's not an easy fix for sure.
It sounds ridiculous sometimes when you hear, someone will be like, well, maybe you're just thirsty. And if you're a big boy, like, you're like, dude, I don't want fucking water. Like,
no,
I want to fucking eat. You're like, I want pizza.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever confused my hunger and thirst. I think that's a myth that's been around for a long time.
You mentioned medicines, and when a lot of people are doing when they're trying to drop weight, right? I know people who are obese, it's a different level, right? But when you're trying to implement habits and you continue messing up, in what cases do some of these medicines, and actually, if you can explain to us kind of what medication you're actually talking about, when are they necessary? Because some people that in the audience that perk their ears, they're like, "Ooh, there's medicine for this. There's there's a way I can speed this up, right?" Yeah. But when is it necessary, and when do you think, okay, no, you don't need medication, you need better habits?
Yeah. So it's interesting with obesity. There can be some derangements in appetite and cravings in the reward center. So we know people need a calorie deficit. I'm not even arguing that. I'll never argue that. It's energy balance, whatever. There's satiety signals and reward signals, craving signals that the brain sends out, and some people are wired differently. So when you put somebody on a plan, now, of course, we could throw somebody on an island where they have to go fish for themselves and go gather whatever nuts and berries. I don't know, whatever there's on an island. Their weight will reduce. There's no way around it. But in this current environment, what we're surrounded with, you go to the conference room in your office or whatever, the break room, and there's donuts everywhere, and you're like, no, I'm trying to lose weight. There's only so long most people will be able to just say no, but it's constantly thrown in our face. You walk down, you could walk to work, you walk back home from work to try to be healthy, and then all of a sudden you're seeing whatever fast food, McDonald's, I don't care, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So these signals in our brain, especially when you try to lose weight, they're strong. Those are kind of what derail people. So I'd say in pretty much the cases where people have just lost and regained the same, whatever it is, 30 to 50 pounds. And you guys probably see this often. People come to you, yeah, I tried XYZ diet and lost some weight. Can you help me do it again? And they'll do it. A lot of these people will just continue on this spiral of losing and regaining that same 20, 50, 100 pounds even sometimes that I see. And this is where I just go, okay, biologically, there's probably some signal that's pretty strong in your brain. Why don't we use a drug that basically blocks that signal or lessens, attenuates that signal? And these are the new drugs that are out of these GLP-1 medicines. I don't know if you've heard of these, glucagon-like peptide 1, extremely powerful medicines. These past couple of years have really revolutionized like weight loss medicine or obesity treatment, because now we're starting to get to the point where we're getting bariatric surgery level like results in a weekly injection. Yeah, it's insane. This newest one's called tirzepatide. Currently only approved for type 2 diabetes. They usually start off as approved for type 2 diabetes, but they eventually usually get approved for weight loss. And this newest one, Mounjaro, or is the brand name tirzepatide, gets somewhere around 21% weight loss. Now, comparing that to like a lap band, which people don't get lap bands anymore, but that's just as good, if not better than that. A gastric sleeve is one of the bariatric surgeries, somewhere around 25 or so percent. Gastric bypass around 30 or so percent. So we're starting to get to this level. And when you start people on these medicines, what they'll describe is that like, holy cow, I can do this now. So when you talk about these habits, they're like, I know what I need to do. I know what I need to do. And talk about simplifying the message. They know they probably shouldn't be eating all the donuts in the break room. They know they shouldn't be stopping at fast food on the way home. With this medicine, what they always describe is that I didn't have to have the donuts. I was able to have my whatever chicken. I'm not going to say chicken breast and broccoli, but whatever. Their meat and vegetable or whatever it was, and they just don't even feel. They feel satiated from it. They don't have that strong craving, and they just feel. They describe they feel like they should feel, is what they say, and they didn't know what normal felt until they used this medicine. So that's kind of the cases. You'll see that there will be a lot of people. Not a lot. I'll say there will be people that are successful without medicines or surgery or whatever. But I try to like take the stigma away from using these tools, because why not use these tools as technology improves, as long as they're safe, of course. So that's pretty much how they work.
In your opinion, can people just can they kind of smash lean protein and fill themselves up a bit and maybe dampen some hunger signals and things like that. Do you feel that that's anything that you've seen work for people?
Yeah. So if they're not, I mean, of course, if they're going the drug route, they're able to start eating the lean protein and that type of stuff. But if we're trying to use without medicine, it's hard to overeat a lean protein, right? Like, I always get into it with the keto people online. It's just fun. I don't know. I don't get into it with the vegans. The vegans are vicious. They'll just so I don't mess around. They're like, oh, you want to kill innocent animals? I'm like, okay, I don't want to. Just please leave me alone. So I stick with just messing with the keto people. So I could overeat ribeyes, like put some butter on it, put a ribeye. I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Take like a top sirloin, without butter on it. Put a little salt on it, of course, but like it's hard to overeat that. It's not as pleasurable, but it's filling,
You get to a point where you're like, fuck.
Yeah. Or the probably the best one. Like it's really hard for me to overeat salmon or some sort of fish. It's not as palatable as like a beef or maybe even chicken. But yeah, these types of things are filling. There's controversy. I see the scientists go back and forth about these studies looking at different macronutrients. I'm sure you guys have talked about this before, but whether protein is the most satiating, but like I tell you what, of course, you're drinking whey protein, you're not going to have much of a difference compared to maybe some other types of smoothies that's mostly carbs from like fruit or something like that. In fact, the fruit might be more filling because it's more fiber. But lean, like meat, animal-based protein, I don't know. I think they need to do more studies on that and compare, because for me and for patients, it's really hard to overeat that stuff.
So I have a question, because we had Alan Aragon on a while ago, and he's multiple people, including even Lane. Some of them have mentioned how protein, even if one tends to overeat protein, and you also see this oddly enough in bodybuilders when they're kind of getting staged. I don't want to bring bodybuilders into this because it's a very different population, but when bodybuilders are starting to get leaner, they start to really drive up their protein intake to could be 250, 300, 350 grams. But for some reason, there doesn't seem to be fat gain or weight gain, especially when it's like in the absence of extra fat. So very lean sources of protein. They tend to be able to overeat protein, have a potentially same or slightly increased caloric amount, but they continue to trend down as far as fat loss is concerned. And there have been certain things that we've said, like, oh, maybe protein doesn't count like all the other macronutrients.
Yeah.
Is that a safe statement to make, or is that just like blasphemer? It's calories in, calories out.
Yeah. No, so when people are saying, a calorie is a calorie, well, okay, it's a unit of energy. But when people say a calorie is not a calorie, what they should probably be saying is a macronutrient, not a macronutrient. These things are metabolized and utilized just differently in our body, and it's hard to take protein and convert it into triglyceride or adipose. It's really hard to do that. So hypothetically, when you start looking at these overfeeding studies, when people start overeating protein and they can gain weight, but it's like lean mass. So it's hard. They've tried to look at it. It doesn't easily convert to adipose. Now, I think probably Alan, he's a good buddy of mine, and so is Lane. So I'm sure they described though, like, but if you're kind of like alcohol, it's actually hard to store alcohol as fat, but like it will cause you to store other things that you eat with it as fat. So it's possible eating more protein. If you just start eating more protein along with the fat that you already have in your diet, it's possible then that you'd store more of that fat as fat. These are kind of like hypothetical things, but as a general rule of thumb, it's hard to store protein as adipose. That's the idea.
It kind of seems like if you were to eat like 30 or 40 grams of protein from a fairly lean source, like a chicken breast or maybe even like a chicken thigh, get a little more fat in there, and eat something like an apple, that it would really, again, calm your hunger. And that's something that we promote and talk about quite a bit on this show, is like, for people that are heavy, we like fasting and stuff like that too, but we enjoy it for us, and we'll promote it out to people that have already had some success in their diet. They're already familiar with the correct foods to eat. I think for some other people, it might not be the greatest place to start. But I think for most people that are heavy, the best thing for them to do is to really concentrate on not allowing themselves to get too hungry, because when you get hungry, you get to be out of control. And we've all been grocery shopping before when you're starving and you look at that shopping cart when you on the way out and you're like, Jesus, I bought a lot of bullshit today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I actually like chicken thighs more than chicken breasts. So I'm kind of with you.
Yeah.
It's like,
the chicken breasts are tough.
Yeah, the chicken thighs, they're not that fatty. I mean, if you get the ones that are relatively skin off and everything, and they just taste so much better. So 100%. It's like, just get the chicken thighs, like, unless you're just like prepping for a bodybuilding contest and you need to be like extremely lean, which is, most of my patients, they're not needing to do that. Some people might actually like the chicken breast more. I don't. I like chicken thighs. But anyway, yeah, I think focusing on foods that are absolutely filling and more satiating is a great place to start. So just, it's hard to people are like, well, fruit has fructose in it, so it's going to make you fat. And it's like, nobody's gaining weight from eating fruit, unless I did have one patient say they couldn't stop eating frozen grapes. I suppose that might count if you can.
Those are delicious.
It's good.
I was just thinking too, watermelon is really good. I love eating like a giant, we get watermelon all the time. I eat like a fucking giant bowl of it.
I've done that the past 2 nights.
It's so nice when it's like in season and everything.
Yeah, and a carton of like strawberries is like 150 calories. I mean, just eat the carton. I mean, whatever. It's a lot of fiber, a lot of good stuff there. So yeah, I think, being in this environment and you just, you should probably eat this fruit filling foods. Sometimes it's just hard. So I agree. Like, if you can make sure that you have it, make it tasty enough to where you want it a little bit. We know it's not going to be as good as a donut per se, but if you can focus and try to eat that first and then say, do I want that donut now? That's probably a better bet than just wait until you're super hungry and then choosing the other foods over the donut.
When it comes to the fruit, it's funny because we've had some carnivores come on the show. We had somebody come on and mentioned how can't eat peaches because you'll just go to down the deep end if she eats too many peaches, right? And really? But what I'm curious about is, like, what are people getting wrong about their messaging when it comes to fruit? Because some people especially some people within carnivore, are very anti-fruit because they say it can spark people's appetite. They'll tend to overeat on fruit, and you just don't really see that in application.
Yeah, is there a concern? Because we know fructose can potentially be bad for the liver, I guess. So
yeah,
is there any?
You'd have to eat a lot of fruit and egg. There should be studies on this. Whenever they look at like whether fructose is harmful for the liver, you have to give loads of it, and it has to be pretty much pure fructose to have. And it has a hypothetical risk due to how it's metabolized. But really, it still comes down to energy balance. So like you'd have to eat a ton of fruit to potentially hypothetically harm your liver. And even still, if you're in a calorie deficit and you're losing weight, you're probably going to start getting rid of the liver fat if you have some liver fat. So it would be really hard to overeat on fruit. But like my patient who said they couldn't stop eating frozen grapes, it would be really interesting to go, all right, well, let's see what happens to your liver. Yeah, you can do it. You can do these imaging tests and kind of detect how much liver fat. But in general, it's just really hard to overeat on fruit. And people say, well, because of the fiber, it might fill you up. And then also remember, fruit, it's not pure fructose. It's a combination of glucose and fructose, and the glucose really isn't the issue here for this hypothetical risk of fructose induced fatty liver disease. There's some people that are just like, you need to avoid fruit like the plague because any little fructose is going to be harmful, and it's just not true. It doesn't happen in the studies. So I would say that if somebody feels that that fruit is the issue, I want to see the rest of their diet. I'd be like, man, if fruit's your issue, man, you must have a very nice looking diet. Like it has to be. Like, what else are you eating? I don't know.
It's when we start to blend things together where you can start to see where maybe it's problematic. If you are making a fruit bowl and you have yogurt and some other things, again, like that's still going to be hard to make be like quote unquote bad for you or to overeat.
Acai bowls.
But yeah, you can make a giant bowl and it could have, 400 grams of carbs and it could have, 20 or 30 fat. Like it could add up fast. So it's a combination of stuff that we got to probably just, I don't know, we gotta just use common sense around that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just use.
I mean, peaches is interesting. I mean, if you have it, the canned peaches that are soaked in high fructose corn syrup, and then you just drinking that afterwards. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, those are fucking delicious. You're probably a fan though of using like probably in any and all methods, right? Like you probably aren't really necessarily like if you find somebody that a primarily a meat diet is working really well for them, you'll probably just roll with that. Like I think that's the way that you go, right?
Yeah. So I mean, people will say like, you're just a keto basher. I can't believe you hate something that can be so therapeutic. You hate carnivore, even though this has helped me. And the truth is, like, I have patients that are carnivore. I kind of monitor them, make sure they're getting enough nutrients. Maybe if they need to take a vitamin, to make sure they're getting enough vitamin C or whatever, just to make sure they're not getting scurvy. But like, I'm not one of these people that like, okay, so here's the example. Someone was making the argument that meat is is overall unhealthy. And I said, what do you mean by unhealthy? Like there's a spectrum though. What are we comparing it to? And then we have to know what outcome we're looking at. If you're just saying unhealthy, what does health even mean? So, Sean Baker's, I love going back and forth with Sean. He's my favorite carnivore doctor because like just straight up meathead and doesn't, like he says a lot of politically incorrect things that I'm like, oh my God, I would never say that. My license if I said that. But in terms of like just being real about it, about at least not those other things, but maybe the carnivore stuff, he pulls up a good point. Like, let's say I have a patient who's 300 pounds, has non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, sleep apnea, whatever else, what other, osteoarthritis in their knees. They lose, let's say, 50% of their body weight or even 30 or something. They get down to like 200 pounds and they are feeling amazing. I've seen doctors say like, oh, I can't believe you're doing carnivore. That's going to kill you. I'm like, this person was just eating donuts and pizza and living a very poor quality of life. And now they're eating meat, and just because you have something against red meat or whatever, you're going to tell them that's bad for them when clearly everything else improved. So I think from my standpoint, I think we just got to look at the patient in front of us, understand their total risk of everything, and look at their quality of life. Quantity of life is different too. I think, there's probably, if we could put them on a more longevity optimal diet, maybe hypothetically they'd live longer, but that remains to be seen anyway. We're not going to know all that. So I think if somebody does a carnivore diet, ketogenic diet, and they improve all their markers and they're looking great, why not? As long as they're doing it safely. So that's my thing. I like to make fun of keto only because of some of the people that are in the keto community that basically try to make it seem like it's the only way. And it's like, it's not the only way. And then they'll be like, oh, you think counting calories is the only way? I'm like, I don't even count calories. I hate counting calories. It's not, so like, and they're like, what are you, a stupid vegan? I'm like, I'm not even a vegan. I love meat. I love, like, what are you talking about? So I think just assuming that if I'm saying, making fun of something, they assume I'm the other way, but it's like, really, I'm like, no, I have patients that do all of it. And actually a lot of my patients laugh a lot at my memes that are making fun of it. They're like, I know you're just joking, but I thought it was funny. Anyway, that's my stance. I think there are people that can do extremely well on it. It's like, hey, bravo. Man, you're living a great life now. Just as that, watch their risk on everything else and monitor them. And patients do have autonomy too. We don't want to just poo-poo them and make them feel bad, and then they're going to fire you anyway. So they're going to go somewhere else.
Let's say a patient wants to employ some fasting.
Yeah.
Where do you go with that?
Same thing. Like I basically tell them, look, it's a method of allowing you to eat less energy. I usually try to downplay these possible like magical properties that fasting may have, that's been kind of studied in animal models. But in terms of humans, it's like, look, I can't say whether it's gonna be beneficial beyond this energy restriction, but like if it helps you do the energy restriction, why not? Just, what's the harm?
It's the way
That's
our
what I would say.
ancestors ate, bro.
Yeah, it's ancestral, so it has to be good. That's the key, right?
I'm curious about this because you work with a lot of individuals who have obesity. That's you work with primarily, and we've been having a few discussions on the show with the idea of the healthy at every size movement, the fat acceptance movement. And a comment that I've been seeing a lot, and we've been seeing a lot, is a lot of people are saying, well, these people would stop stuffing their faces. It's a choice, man. Like you make that choice, you deal with the whatever. We can't accept it, right? Is it? I know a lot of the things that go on metabolically, psychologically with individuals who are obese. Is that actually a choice that people are making? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of people that are like, of course it's a choice, but I would posit this: most people go through life subconsciously. They're when you're young, you're not thinking of whether. I mean, some people hyperfixate it because of their parents or whatever, but most people, like, I don't know, when I was young, I drank like regular soda and had pizza whenever. And I didn't really think of anything about it.
Yeah.
And I stayed naturally lean, right? Because it was like I just kind of ate to, I'm satiated now. I didn't think anything about it. Whereas other people, they don't think anything of it, but they start gaining weight because they're, the genetics or whatever, appetite regulation is not as good as mine necessarily, or as other people who stay lean throughout their life. And they're subconsciously, it's just all subconscious. We're just kind of living life. We're not really thinking of it. Now, once you develop the obesity, overweight, and then you're going, I should really do something about it. Deciding to do something about it is a choice. You are now consciously aware of it, going like, okay, do I need to do something about it? The problem is then it's not just a simple choice of like, do I want to have obesity or not have obesity? You're literally making choices all throughout the day. Do I want to sit here on the couch, do my work, or do I want to take this meeting and go for a walk? Every little piece of morsel of food that you're thinking about eating, those are all choices. So it becomes multiple choices throughout the day. And then even then, our body starts fighting us, kind of what I talked about. Our brains start fighting us in terms of hunger. So here's the analogy I would say. Obesity would be a choice the same way that walking from New York City to LA would be a choice. Some people could fly to LA, right? They can lose the weight and keep it off, and it was not a big deal. Some people can drive. It was a little bit harder, but they did it. Some people bike, and then some people just have to walk. So technically, like, somebody has obesity and they have the resources. Let's say they have the resources, and they could just pay someone to get them to an island where the food, and they have nothing in this environment that's kind of pushing them towards gaining weight. Okay, so technically then it would be a choice for them, because they're not going to have any choice but to start losing weight, even if they are starving hungry. It's not possible. And also, of course, it's a choice if you can afford these drugs and surgeries or whatever, but let's just cut those out for now. So I would say, like, it's not a choice. Yes, a choice. It's just kind of a metaphorical, silly question that I would just say, let's just understand it's really hard. For some people it's easier, some people it's harder. Some people just probably won't be able to lose weight and keep it off. And I don't want to take away hope from those people. It's just face reality and figure out tools to help them the best we can. So that's how I usually answer that.
Yeah, and it really doesn't matter, like, a ton, right? Like how they got there. Like someone who's an alcoholic, they're an alcoholic, and how they got there, yes, it's important. Maybe they have a trauma in their life, and you see it very often with obesity. There's a trauma, and so it's nice to try to work some of those things out, but the math is still all the same. Like, you still got to figure out this calorie thing, and you still have to figure out, like, how the fuck can I make it through each day with just eating a little bit less? How is every day or every birthday and every holiday not this like mega celebration? People know me as the big guy. They know that I hammer food pretty good, and like, it's always a thing. And people buy you gifts and stuff that probably fall in line with you barbecuing and like just various things that they think that you might enjoy, and you're trying to get yourself out the game like you're in drugs or something, you know. But you can't. You're hooked in there, and you're sort of stuck, and it's not an easy thing. What I really think is cool about you is that you are actually physically working with these people. These are people. Our obese community is not getting served enough. They're not serviced enough. They're not thought about enough. In this country, we don't think about them enough, especially before somebody gets to these kind of critical points. Do you think some of this stuff should be taught at home or in school, or like where should we pick up some of these values? Because I would imagine even just somebody listening to you for 20 or 30 minutes could really help change someone's life forever, in my opinion.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments. That means a lot. I think, culturally, as a society, it's also different here in the United States versus other foreign countries where it's just a different culture when you're young. And in society, some places they are more shameful, and it seems to not be as deleterious as here. Here, when we kind of put pressure and stigma and shame, it tends to make people worse and gain weight. It would be nice to start when you're young and have your parents have a nice healthful meal as much as possible. It's interesting though. I see, my daughter and son, they like to eat their goldfish, the little packets of goldfish.
Yeah.
They'll eat some healthy stuff and whatever, some fruit and meat and whatever, vegetables, and then they'll still want some snacks afterwards, and we try to minimize it as much as possible. But you think about other families, it's like, I always make the worst case scenario. Let's say a single mom who has to work multiple jobs, their kid has to sit at home with a TV dinner, a pizza dinner, watching TV or something like that, as opposed to like another family that has a nice sit down meal and they have all as many fruits and vegetables as possible. So it'd be nice on multiple levels to prevent it from first occurring. Like, it'd be nice to just change our environment. It's just really hard to do that on a global scale.
Do you find it hard as a parent yourself to kind of help manage that? Like, is it a little bit of a pain in the ass to like chop up fruit or have like fresh options? My kids, they just don't even there's so much good food in our fridge and there's so much good food in our house, but they still are so lazy with stuff. They just, my son might go in the fridge and get watermelon, but probably not. I probably have to say, hey, Jake, I bought you some watermelon, and I got to fucking hand it to him. You find it's kind of a pain in the ass.
That's how powerful these foods are engineered to just make us want more.
Right.
Why? That's when I was younger, it's like, I don't want that broccoli. I want that piece of pizza or whatever it was. A freaking snack pack. Or
I don't know. I cooked up eggs and filet for breakfast the other morning. I asked my son, I'm like, you want some eggs? You want some filet? I was like, it came out fucking perfect. It's amazing. He's like, no, I'm good. I'm about to leave the house and I almost step on a Subway sandwich that was delivered to our front door. I'm like, you chose a fucking Subway sandwich.
Well, what kind of sandwich?
Over a filet and eggs, which I totally understand because it probably tasted amazing.
So good.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, that's exactly the thing. You just try to do the best you can. You try to surround them with an environment that's conducive to it. I'll say also on a genetic standpoint, we'll go out with other families to get some donuts after soccer or something like that. And my daughter, she loves the crazy donuts, and she'll eat like half of it, and she's like, "Okay, I'm done," and she'll throw it away. But she loved that first half. The fact that she only ate half was interesting to me because I'll see other kids, maybe not as favorable genetics, and they'll plow one, they'll plow another one, and I'm just like, "Holy cow! This is right in my face how different we are as people." To where it's like, my daughter, I know, loves that donut. She was so excited, but she only ate half, and she goes, "All right, I'm done. I'm full." Boom, and threw it away. I'm like, "Oh my god!" Whereas the other kids eating multiple. So, maybe it's just maybe it's all in our genes. We have no control. Not really, but obviously there's a nature and nurture involved. So you just try to do the best you can.
Yeah, I don't want to sound insensitive towards it because I've never had an issue with gaining weight. But to me, it does seem, or it does appear that like people can be addicted to food. So I don't know if food addiction is even a thing. Maybe you can help us out with that. But also like for the person that maybe they're not even coming to you, like maybe it's somebody that we want to have a conversation with, or somebody listening wants to have a conversation with in regards to like, okay, they're not moving around. They don't really have much going on. But after dinner, which the dinner wasn't even that healthy anyways, but they look forward to that bucket of Ben and Jerry's, right? And without it, they're unhappy. Without it, they don't feel them like they're themselves anymore.
Yeah.
When it gets to that point, I kind of would be like, well, shit, maybe this person is addicted to the food. So if that's the case, like, what's that conversation like? Like, how can you bring someone back from kind of relying on that extra treat towards the end of the day?
Yeah. Oh, great question. I love it because, you'll see this very staunch evidence-based fitness people be like, there's no such thing as food addiction. You're just eating too much. And I'm like, have you ever had like Doritos? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I can't eat Doritos or whatever, I kind of like the kettle chips.
Those are good.
Those are really good.
It's just like so like you think about like mashing up these kettle chips and putting them in water and making like a mashed potatoes almost with it. It's pretty much the same thing. You just added water, but it doesn't taste as good. So there's all sorts of properties about these foods that make us want them more. The crunchiness, the saltiness, the little bit of fat that they put in, and then the starch.
I get so excited with stuff like that too. I'm already thinking about other combinations. I'm like, I can dip that in cheese, or I can dip that in ranch.
I was thinking of dip too.
Yeah. That's right where my mind goes to. I need more combinations. Like this Dorito doesn't pack quite enough flavor. I need even more on top of it.
Yes. These foods they're designed to do this. And so I'm not going to play this whole like conspiracy theory of like big food is taking over and whatever, but like, they kind of in a certain way. So I would say, sure, maybe food's not addictive. Well, we can call them addictive like. It doesn't really matter. There's similar pathways in the brain that control this. I was talking about the reward center in our brain, the reward pathways. And that's why like, hey, alcoholism, smoking, these types of things, some of the drugs that we have, they're older drugs for weight loss. Some of the drugs that we have actually have been used for smoking cessation, alcohol cessation. And some of these drugs that are now being used for the obesity, these GLP-1s, they actually reduce some of these other addictive substance abuse activities like smoking and alcohol and probably other things, even gambling. I think they're going to start studying this stuff for. So in these types of patients, so first of all, I validate how they're feeling. I think the wrong way to think about this is like, there's no such thing as food addiction. This person's telling you, I'm having trouble stopping myself from eating Ben and Jerry's after each meal, despite being relatively full. And you're going to tell them there's no such thing. Clearly, there's some driver for them to want to do this, despite having that satiation, that feeling of feeling satisfied and not shouldn't want any more food. But there's something else in their brain that's basically driving them to want to do this, even when they know it's harmful to them too. So I think at the very least, we validate what they're feeling. And I would say there are pathways in our brain that may indeed drive us to want to eat even more in some of these foods that are extremely yummy. We're wired to want to eat these highly, very yummy, highly palatable, whatever you want to say, foods. And then there are techniques in terms of psychological techniques and therapies that you can try to do, but I'm a big pharma shill and I use drugs in these patients all the time. It's amazing because they will say like, oh my gosh, I just didn't feel like having that Ben and Jerry's or whatever it is. I just don't feel like it. You made me feel normal. But certainly I think validating how they feel and talking about there's something to it, and maybe not saying, yes, you're addicted, you have no power, because I don't think that's that's what people are trying to say is like, hey, I don't think this is really that addictive, and you're giving them this you're putting this food on a pedestal and they're going to feel like hopeless that they have to eat this. There are techniques you can use to help you. I mean, some people stop drinking and smoking, they can stop. For other people, it's the drive is so strong that it's hard for them to stop. And same with food. But I think there's enough of an overlap to say, hey, there's something to that. Let's see what we can do to give you tools to stop that. That's what I would say.
How do we help or encourage people to get help? You know, we do that with like Alcoholics Anonymous or with someone who's addicted to drugs. Quite common even for families. Like I've had this in my own family in more ways than one, where we've had like interventions. Actually, we've had way too many now that I think about it. But how could someone go about like suggesting, or even just through this show, like is there somewhere for someone to go to like get help that maybe isn't like some outrageous price or something? Like, because I know there's a lot of people suffering and I'm sure they want to start doing something, but they're not going to ask their brother or their brother-in-law or their friend because they just probably don't feel good about it.
Yeah. This is where this destigmatizing thing. So the big thing with like, mental health, depression, taking the stigma away from it. Like, there are a lot of people struggling right now. There's a lot of people that struggle with alcohol. Let's take away the stigma around it. People don't like to talk about it because they're embarrassed. In terms of food, the same thing, taking away the stigma around obesity and the struggles. In terms of like, I'm just going to shill out my own, I have a telemedicine company that we're trying to do this. It's called Sequence. So joinsequence.com is our, where we do these weight loss medicines online and try to make it in the comfort of your own home. Because what happens is that a patient will go to their doctor. They'll finally muster up the courage to talk to their doctor about it. And the doctor would be like, I don't get it. Well, you're just not trying hard enough. You just need to eat more spinach and chicken. I'm not kidding you. There's a doctor that I worked with. One of my patients had to see them for a cold and they brought up their weight. And the doctor was just like, why can't you lose weight? You just need to eat egg whites, spinach, and chicken. Like, what are you doing? And they were so distraught from it. So,
it's
like
disgusting.
It'd be nice to, it's just, egg whites and spinach. That is disgusting. Let's just be honest there. So like, imagine going in, you're already embarrassed about it. And the doctor says that, whereas like, you just want, you want some help. And now just knowing that there are tools out there that can help is the first thing, destigmatizing obesity and saying, there are obesity specialist doctors out there, the abom.org. You can find one near you if you didn't want to go to like my telemedicine thing. But knowing that there is help is a good step.
Powerproject family, I hope you guys are doing well. Now, we love meat. We love to eat meat on this podcast. We've talked about it. Yeah, we talked about it a lot. That's why we partner with Piedmontese, because they have amazing cuts of steaks, some that have a lot of fat, some that are a bit lower fat. But no matter what diet you're on, you can fit Piedmontese steak into your diet. It's fucking good. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, you guys got to head over to Piedmontese.com. If you guys know how to spell it, say it with me. That's PIEDMONTESE.com, and at checkout, enter promo code POWER for 25% off your entire order. And if your order is $150 or more, you get free 2-day shipping. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes. Let's get back to the podcast.
I'm curious because you mentioned yo-yo dieting quite a few times. Now, we've known people who have lost 100, 200 pounds and have gained literally all the weight back, then lost it again, then gained some of it back, right? So if you get to the other side, if you've dropped that weight or you've dropped a substantial amount of weight and you're like, I want to stay the course, I want to maintain this. Yeah. What are the key things that you need to make sure you just do so that you don't end up going back and gaining weight? Because some people think that like, your metabolism is always the way it is. So like you're gonna be at that weight, then you're just gonna start eating the same amount of food that you used to eat. So what should people do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. So there are a lot of people that use whatever techniques to get down to that weight. And then it's almost like they get bored with not seeing the scale change. Like it was almost dopamine releasing to wake up, every week or whatever. And, or how often they got on the scale and just, yes, I lost another pound or lost another couple pounds or whatever it was. So sometimes it's teaching people to like, appreciate maintenance, appreciate this plateau, appreciate where you're going to hopefully maintain. And then say like, look, at this weight, you had to eat this much to get there, but you can actually eat more to still maintain this this weight. Well, so, you go in the calorie deficit, and then maintenance is actually a little bit higher than that. So allowing people to eat more. The other thing is if we can get people to like really get into physical activity, then you don't need to eat so few of calories for the long run. And I'm going on a debate about what's better, aerobic training versus resistance training for long-term obesity management. My hypothesis is this. I honestly, there's no data to support this, but I'm going to be using hypotheticals and storytelling to try to win this debate because I don't have the data on my side. But, let's say you get people like to just completely starving themselves and they get down that 100 pounds or whatever it is. If we're able to get them to strength train, aerobic training is great. I'm not going to poo-poo aerobic training. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It helps you burn more calories, and there's cardiorespiratory fitness involved and whatever. But what if you're able to start weight training and you build some of that muscle and then you start eating more and more so that you don't feel so like deprived, and then you're partitioning that energy that you're starting to eat back more and more into muscle and using it as substrate with your muscle. Anyway, this is my idea. There's lots of anecdotes out there. I wish I had a long-term study. The one thing is that people it's just hard to adhere to exercise regardless. So this is all hypothetical, but I think that in terms of weight loss maintenance, getting people to be physically active, whether it's a lot more walking or whatever, but getting people strength training would also help to allow people to eat more. Of course, I use medicines and whatever to keep the weight off on some of these people that are just so hungry. But I think in terms of lifestyle habits, ensuring they know they can eat more. If they start seeing the scale go up a little bit, that's fine. Understanding it's a little bit water. It goes back to the all or nothing mentality that like, oh, I'm starting to see the scale go up. I guess I'm going back to what I was before. It's like, no. Just have these little like alarms at like, oh, I regained, 3% of my weight or 10 pounds or whatever that is. All right, I got to refocus, think about what I'm doing, not overly obsess over it and that type of thing. So these are kind of the skills we go over, but I'm kind of a shill for resistance training, of course, like y'all are. So I do think that like getting into that and really building some muscle and being able to eat more overall, so you don't have to stay on this like depriving diet of egg whites and spinach. No, just kidding. But that's the gist. And of course, focusing on these really satiating, filling foods as much as possible.
What are some things that frustrate you? Because you seem frustrated when it comes to
sexually, or is this?
Yeah, sexual frustration. Yeah, let's get that out. Now, just with some of your posts, sometimes it seems like you're frustrated with some of what's communicated in the fitness industry. So, what are some of the main frustrations of maybe some other people that are sharing information from a nutrition standpoint where you're like, man, some of these guys just don't know what the fuck they're talking about? Because again, I think when you're talking to the community that you're speaking to, it's just a whole different thing. And you're actually a doctor and you're actually like servicing these people, communicating with them and getting them results. It's way different than say like even me, for example, just saying, hey, like try this and I think you're going to be able to lose some weight. And of course there's people that get excited and they drop 20 pounds and stuff like that, but you're actually in the trenches.
Yeah. I think, probably some of the big frustrations, of course, like I always pick on the keto people, like some of these people that just come up with silly mechanisms to promote their style of weight loss or eating. Because the biggest frustration is just the pseudoscience and the stuff that confuses people. Because I think that's what makes people just, wait, I thought eating after 6 p.m. I would automatically gain weight. Wait, I thought eating breakfast was good. Wait, I thought, skipping breakfast was the best. So just like when people make up stuff just to push their narrative, that's the most frustrating thing, because like in the end people lose. And some people are like, well, what's the harm? Like such and such doctor said that fasting and keto is the best, and there are a lot of people that did it and lost weight. Well, the harm is that you don't see the people that didn't lose weight and now think that certain foods harmful based on some silly mechanistic property that somebody made up. So I'd say the biggest frustration is just simply just making things up without having like the evidence to back it up, and like being very like authoritative about it in terms of like, hey, this might help. Like you said, hey, this strategy might help do this, as opposed to like, this strategy is the way because of this XYZ mechanism. If you do it this other way, you're going to fail. And it's very, I just don't like that authoritative speak in terms of like things that are just like, hey, you don't know that, obviously, number one. Number two, it's just wrong. So I'd say the confusion stuff is my biggest issue.
You mentioned kind of plateaus earlier. And I'm curious because there are some people who they've structured their own diet. They've been a caloric deficit. They've increased their energy expenditure. They're working out. But they've gotten to a point where they're like, I don't want to take away any more calories. I can't do any more fucking cardio. And I'm doing resistance training 6 times a week, but I'm not dropping weight. Right.
Yeah.
So for individuals in that particular conundrum, what should they think about doing?
Yeah. These are the people that I'm like, screw the scale weight. Let's just forget about it for now.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we focus on other non-scale victories or whatever you want to say, behaviors? Let's focus on fitness. Let's focus on getting stronger. Let's focus on shaping your body composition. Screw the scale. Not in this whole healthy at every size type of way, but like on a very like purposeful, like understanding that the scale weight isn't everything. There are other factors in your habits that can be very healthful. And so that in those people, like, embrace the plateaus. Let's not even look at the scale anymore, other than, make sure you're not gaining weight, of course. But let's start focusing on other things that can get you going. Let's get you eating more so you're not feeling so miserable, and make sure that you're maintaining the weight. And then see where you go from there. Because like when people start obsessing over their weight, that's worth, and I get it all the time. Patients we've just been ingrained to obsess over the scale. I wish I could get people not to, and I try to help them. But this is where, hey, let's focus on, let's get your squat up or your deadlift or whatever. Let's focus on, your waist circumference is shrinking, but your scale's not changing. I think that's a good thing. You look different in your clothes. That's probably all you really cared about. Do you really care about the number on the scale? That type of thing.
I would imagine that your first place to start with somebody probably isn't to necessarily take away shit, and like especially take away calories. It's probably more like, let's see if we can get a shift with better food choices, and hey, can you do a couple of walks a day or something along those lines? Does that sound fairly accurate?
Yeah. So it depends on, like, okay, so let's say it's in that first month or two and they're excited about their weight loss, and maybe have them on a relatively higher calorie intake. That's you already know that they're eating a healthful dietary pattern, let's say. So in this case, you may adjust their calories down. But in the majority of these people that are really frustrated, they've probably been going at it for like 3 to 6 months. In those cases, I'm always just like, hey, let's take a step back, and let's not focus on the scale. Let's just actually try to maintain this for a few months, and let's focus on other things. And now that sometimes upsets patients, and because they're so obsessed, but other times they're like, no, that sounds great. I've been going at this hard. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'd rather eat a little bit more, maintain this, and focus on other things.
When it comes to tirzepatide, I was curious about this because, like, whenever any drug is mentioned, I'm always like, what are some side effects? So, like, if somebody takes tirzepatide for quite some time, right? Let's say they're doing it, I think you said on a weekly basis, and then they get to their goal weight. Do they need to keep taking tirzepatide? Like, what happens when they stop? Does their appetite, the way they look at things, come back? Do they need to wean off the dose? Like, what's the deal there?
Yeah, the way that most people think of these medicines are chronic therapy. So like, think of like blood pressure medicine. Somebody, they've done all the lifestyle things. They've aerobic training, they're resistance training, they're eating a DASH-like diet where they've lost weight and their blood pressure's still high. Or maybe they're struggling in other ways, but their blood pressure's still high. So we put them on blood pressure medicine. Their blood pressure eventually comes down to a good range. The same thing is with these, and it would be like stopping the blood pressure medicine now that their blood pressure is normal. So these new medicines, they hit this biological part of our brain that is like, we now think is like really driving the boat here in terms of people regaining weight and not losing weight. So there are studies on this. They stop the medicines, whether it's semaglutide, which is one of the newer GLP-1 medicines, or tirzepatide. It's so new that they're going to be looking at this in certain studies, stopping it. But let's say there's one with semaglutide. They stopped it and they put one group on a placebo and then saw what happened to them. Most people do start regaining the weight, even though they're thought that, they didn't even know they're on a placebo.
Yeah.
So likely people will have to stay on at least a low dose medicine. There's not guidance yet on, these things are so powerful. People are going from, I have patients that were like in the 30s, BMI high 30s, and now they're in like the mid 20s to low 20s. And I'm like, all right, I need to actually start weaning you at least down, because you're gonna wither away and be frail. Like, I don't want that, of course. So my thinking is that they're gonna at least require a low dose. There are other individuals though who, let's say they had an injury or COVID. COVID really the pandemic threw people off their habits, and so whatever they were before, they were fine. But then COVID happened, the pandemic happened, and then they developed these like poor habits, gained some weight, and then now they're struggling to lose weight. I think that actually using this medicine and helping them, the medicine would help them develop those older habits. Like, you get them into it, it helps them start doing it again. I have a feeling that at least some of those patients, many of those, we would be able to wean the medicine off. And you just say, you might have some hunger coming back, but like, if you're doing these habits, you should be good. Whereas other people, if the biological signal's so strong, it might derail them back into their old habits. That's how I would think of it.
So these products can kind of make you nauseous, right? Like, is one of the main side effects, and it could
nausea is by far
issues.
the most common thing. Yeah, that's the most common one we see. It's mild for most, moderate to severe for some patients, and I do send in what's called like Zofran on Danzatron, the stuff you might have had surgeries or something and afterwards felt nauseous and got some in the hospital. So Zofran I do use. I've noticed I only have to use that for like 1 in maybe 20 or 1 in 30 patients, but the nausea starts to resolve over time. You start at a low dose. First week might be a little nauseous. The second week might be a little bit less and less and less throughout the month. Once in a while, people have to stay on the same dose the second month until they completely tolerate it. Then you go up in the dose and they might get a little bit more nausea, and then it starts to resolve. Then finally, when you're at your final dose, you should not have long-term nausea. If you're feeling nauseous the whole time, that's not really a way to live your life despite losing weight. Like, can you imagine just, I'm losing weight, but I just feel miserable all the time. So that ideally, most people will resolve. So that is the most common, and it does resolve for most people.
What kind of health markers do you see increase when someone loses 10, maybe 15% of their body weight?
Yeah, the goal before used to be around 5%. Now that we have these better drugs and better therapies, it's like, might as well make it at least 10%. And some people are like, no, make it 15, 20, whatever percent. So 5%, you start seeing blood pressure, blood sugar improvements, triglyceride improvements. 10%, you start seeing, you really start seeing better improvements in your knees and further improvements in their triglycerides and blood pressure. And then 10 to 15%, you start seeing improvement in sleep apnea and all these other things like that. And then further along the way, once you get to 20%, once I get somebody to lose 20 or so percent of their weight with this, some of those like metabolic syndrome type stuff, I rarely see them like there. Like they look like a completely different person. That's kind of like going back to like, someone like, why am I going to yell at somebody on an all meat diet who just lost like 30% of their weight, who pretty much like is a completely new person? It's really cool to see that.
Yeah, any side effects that someone might have or some negatives that might come along with anything that they're trying to do to lose weight. Most of the time, losing the body weight or getting rid of some of that body fat is probably one of the more important things, right? It's like, you don't want to do it at all costs, obviously, but
right.
It's some people are in a compromised position, right?
Yeah. So if this is where some of the older drugs, there's things like fen, which was phentermine, which it was studied, was fine. It's the fenfluramine was causing these valve issues, and let's think about like cocaine or something like that. Obviously people start losing weight, but then at the risk of having a vasospasm in one of their coronary arteries and dropping dead type of thing,
Right.
so, obviously there's benefits and risks. And with any type of therapy, we want to make sure the benefits outweigh the risks. And so for these drugs, they've been studied now for a long time and seem to be much, much, much more benefit than risk, which is one of the unfortunate things about some of the older kind of upper type of drugs that we saw.
I hate to bring this up again, but I'm curious actually about your understanding of this. Now, obviously, we've mentioned healthy at every size a few times, and some people bring up the blood work idea. Like if you get your blood work done and you see all your markers are okay, then you're healthy. And some people, when they look at being healthy, they also look at, well, I'm able to do all the things I like to do and I feel good. I'm healthy. My blood work's good, even though I'm overweight or obese. I'm healthy. Is there some, I'm curious if there is anything wrong with that argument. What is the problem there? Like, how can people actually rationally look at that?
Yeah, that's great. I think, this goes into the definitions of like what health outcome are we looking at? Are we looking at purely metabolic health, like in terms of like, risk of type 2 diabetes, risks of heart attacks, risks of kidney disease, that type of thing? But then there's also biomechanical issues, right? So like I'm healthy with all my, markers, but I have sleep apnea, or I'm healthy, but my knees hurt really bad, or I can't walk up the stairs without becoming short of breath. I can't play with my kids, those types of things. So let's just say we're looking at metabolic health. Well, we have very objective. Those other things are kind of subjective, like playing with your kids. There's not really a standardized marker of what's good and what's bad. We just kind of think of, oh, this wasn't good, that wasn't, that was bad. So, but with metabolic health, we have very standardized markers and can predict things like who's going to have heart attacks, and that's why we kind of pick these reference ranges and all these different things. So we have standardized markers. So in terms of that, metabolically healthy but having obesity, it's actually really rare. The harder you look for the more markers you start looking. For example, let's say a study comes out and says, this person is metabolically healthy but has obesity. Sometimes the way that they define it, they'll say they'll allow them to have slightly elevated blood sugar because it's only one component of the metabolic syndrome, which you have to have 3 of these different components. So it's interesting how they define these. So the closer you look, it's actually rare. It's relatively rare to have a metabolically healthy obesity. And then on top of that, if you were to image their liver, they probably, many of those people that are defined as metabolically healthy obesity have fat in their liver. So the question is, what are you going to do about it though? Like, what are we going to do? Just make them feel bad about it? Let's get them to their best life. Let's get them to their best weight where they feel the best. They're the happiest without feeling miserable. And, understand that there still may be risks. Even if their markers did look fine, you didn't image their liver. Technically, someone in that position will still be at a higher risk than someone who is lean, who doesn't have obesity, but is also metabolically healthy, a higher risk of heart attacks and things like that. It's not much of a difference. So that's why we just say, hey, just do the best you can. But I think it's important to delineate, which part of health are we trying to define here? If you're looking at like mental health, that's a whole different thing. Because who of us is actually mentally healthy all around? I'm like, holy cow, if we're going by that, I don't think anybody's really that healthy. But if we're standardizing it with metabolically healthy markers, then we can actually look at that. Anyway, that's usually, I actually do a lot of work in metabolically healthy versus unhealthy obesity. It's a really interesting topic.
What do you do with someone that you're helping and they come back to you a couple weeks later and they're like, my significant other, they're not really on board, and they just run into like a lot of resistance in the household, and maybe they lost some weight, but the other person's kind of scared to see what happens if that person really makes progress and heads in the other direction?
Yeah, it's, I wish I had a perfect answer to this. I've seen some really bad outcomes of this where the partner, one spouse, will lose the weight while the other one doesn't. And, it sounds bad, but I've seen them get divorced because because of whatever reason, jealousy, and then I've seen the sabotaging and all sorts of stuff. The biggest thing I try to teach my patients is like, you're going to have what we call like a crucial conversation about this. You're going to have a sit down, coming to Jesus, like heart to heart, like get them on your team, like please, like I'm begging you type of thing. If you can't do that, then there's probably some issues in that relationship in the first place. I hate to say it, but that's the best you can do. You really got to sit down and have a good discussion with the partner. And if they're still pushing against it, it's like that's just not good. That's not healthy.
What are maybe some simple things that a parent can do to kind of help their kids with their food?
Yeah, the biggest thing is like don't have them start counting their calories, for the love of God. Don't get them obsessed.
Weigh your food.
Yeah, like seriously, don't take the stress away from food. Just try to surround them with the more healthful foods. Try to keep a healthful environment in the house, kind of like what you were saying. Don't talk about their body image. Don't push things. Worst, you can talk to the pediatrician. Oftentimes the pediatricians aren't equipped. There are pediatric obesity physicians, and like they have whole centers around this that kind of go over this type of stuff. So if you're a parent and you have a child that's suffering from it, know that there are holistic type of centers out there with very like specialized pediatric obesity physicians and dietitians and whatever. But the big thing is what would work for me, you doesn't necessarily work for a kid. Their mind is different. They're developing, and you don't want to get them obsessed at a young age, because it can really ruin them later in life.
So for my own amusement and curiosity, if somebody is on one of those GLP-1 drugs, they're not interested in food anymore, so their body is getting energy from their body, so in body fat. But if that body fat was created on donuts and pizza and bad food, is that still a clean source of energy for them, or do they need to supplement with something else?
Yeah, it should be fine. We store the triglycerides and then we just use the triglycerides. Of course, if there's toxins or something else in something that you're eating, you have the risk of releasing it from your body fat. But otherwise, the triglycerides, we convert this energy differently in our body. So then you're just using it later. It shouldn't be an issue.
What do you do for training? I know you said you lift. What else? Do you do anything else?
Yeah, so I wrestled, in college. So I was such a meathead that I really did resistance training only for a while, and then it was 2015 where it's like I hated running for wrestling. I just hated it so much. I was like, just let me lift. But unfortunately, you have to be in good shape to wrestle. So you can't just lift. In fact, that might have been my downfall at times in the third period, being like, all right, I probably should have done some more conditioning here. So now I do try to do some aerobic training in between my lifts. I try to lift either 3 or 4 times a week. With time is really the issue. And in between there, 2 or 3 times a week of some sort of aerobic training. Low level, like kind of zone 2 type of stuff. I was doing higher intensity, but that seems to disrupt being able to lift. And then I get, beat up. So that's kind of one of the things too with patients, like having them understand, like, you don't have to beat yourself up. Just do something that you really enjoy that you can continue doing. That's probably the best. That's what I do.
Got some cauliflower ear under there or no?
No, I wore my headgear, just like I'm wearing these headphones right now. I wore my headgear all the time. I was a good boy. I have some. You can feel it. You won't be able to see it though.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got anything coming up? You got any books coming out or seminars or anything you want to share with us?
Yeah. So I'm going to this obesity week. It's the yearly annual conference, where all the obesity researchers and physicians get together. So that's where I'm debating about resistance training is what I would argue better than aerobic training. It's just a hypothetical question, because ideally you would do both, right? But if you had a gun to your head and you had to choose one, which one would you do? So that's coming up at the beginning of November. And other than that, I'm really trying to get this telemedicine startup just steamrolling the competition. So
I had one last question. I was curious, sometimes when an individual's very large, they have a lot of loose skin as they're dropping down. Is there any way of training or an aspect of losing weight slower? Can anything mitigate the amount of loose skin someone has when they're at their end goal weight? Is there anything?
Yeah. There's anecdotes about like, hey, maybe losing weight at a slower pace, maybe making sure you're lifting weights to fill out some of that loose skin. Some people anecdotally say fasting helps, eating collagen protein. These things, they're just basically anecdotes. Honestly, I don't know of anything. There's surgery you can get when it's done. It's one of these things where I'd say like, hey, if you have a lot of weight to lose, expect that there's going to be some loose skin. Accept that that's a possibility. And at the worst case scenario, you can get surgery. A lot of people, it's hit or miss depending on the surgeon or whatever. But it's one of these answers that I hate giving because I'm just like, I wish I had a magic bullet for it. And it's a good excuse to say, hey, at the very least, start lifting some weights. But I can't promise that's going to do well. But I think if you guys know who Ethan Suplee is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So was he on the podcast? He was or not. Okay, he's my buddy, but great example. I'm going to use him in the debate. Basically, I'm using celebrity endorsement over any evidence that I can use.
Yeah,
but great example. He showed how he was just biking and basically doing tons of cardio, and he was kind of, in his words, kind of skinny and tired and hungry. Whereas now he's lifting weight. I mean, he just looks great. Mm-hmm. He just looks full and great and just happy. And so I try to use those types of examples and just try to get people pumping some iron.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. It was a great conversation. You guys are fun.
All right, man. Catch you later.
Thanks.
See ya.
That's what I was just saying a couple of days ago was, if I could pick one thing, it would be just for people to lift some weights. I know it's not an easy thing for people to get into, but some resistance training is nice. Mm-hmm. What you laughing about over there?
You okay? Did you fart?
I think we're good. Yeah, it was.
Maybe he's going to poop.
He was really.
Or are you thinking about going to Obesity Week?
I saw you grinning over there because I was thinking it back here, and I'm like, I'm not going to say anything as the skinny guy over here, but all I could think of was like, that probably looks kind of like Super Bowl week.
Yeah.
For everyone.
Yo, these jokes are all in good fun. But yeah, my mind, when he said that,
okay, so we're all there.
I really held that shit back.
Yeah, Obesity Week. I'm thinking it's like 4th and 1 on the goal line. They're putting in all the heavy players on the team.
Dog.
Sorry, everybody. Sorry.
My mind just went like that's. I know. That's what went on.
Well, it also made me just think like that would be like that's such a great week. Like you just eat whatever you want. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what I thought it meant to me. Like cheat week.
To be fair, we call that like Thanksgiving here.
Yeah,
it's like it's Thanksgiving, so I'm gonna have the pumpkin pie starting Monday.
It might be helpful to just start calling it Obesity Week. That way, people maybe are a little more cautious going into it.
Do you think we can pass that?
I don't think so.
I mean, you were running for president that one year, and you got something fucking legislated.
Yeah, I think we can do it.
I'm pretty sure.
Obesity
it was called
Week.
Fit Week.
Oh yeah, Fit Week.
And you can call it not Fat Week.
Be Less Fat Week.
Yeah, Be Less Fat Week.
That's gonna make people mad.
People do need to be less fat, though, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, hopefully some of this message here today, hopefully some of it was helpful. We don't mean to be distasteful, disgusting fuckers, but we just are. So I apologize for that. But it's a huge problem. There's a lot of people that need a lot of help, and I don't know what it's like. I've never, I was partially trapped in there, I guess I'd say. Like I had some habits that were really difficult to part with, and they're still kind of there sometimes. They still want to kind of creep back out, but I certainly don't have some of the issues, when I've talked with friends that are obese, where you're like, oh, that's what you're talking. Okay, I had no idea. I remember we had a guest on the show a long time ago, and he was talking about how like once the kind of floodgates were open to eat whatever he wanted, like what a ordeal it was. And it was like it sounded like an addiction. It sounded like somebody that was addicted to a drug and they had to have it because the length that he went to and the setup that he went to was just, it was it was fucking overwhelming. Hey, we got our boy Russell in the house.
of-
Russell,
Thank you, yes.
hop on over here, buddy.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Nadolsky's disappeared.
Okay. Hi, Doctor.
But- Yeah, he misappeared, but we might as well have you
Throw
over
those
here
cans
anyway.
on. Go ahead and adjust.
Oh my goodness.
Adjust
I
the,
feel like-
Oh, you're so tall.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
fucking tall.
I
like
don't
this.
see you every single day, but it's
Yes.
like even that shirt looks
Yes.
better. Where'd you get that?
Say it. Wait, where?
Yeah, I mean it's you look great in that shirt. It's just I don't see you every day,
Russell,
so
yeah,
like
let's
you
go
can
ahead and
tell.
adjust that.
Oh.
Let's get this. Let's do this right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, keep going. Crank it. Crank it.
So good to me, dude.
But I'm glad
Where
you
did I
were
get
thinking the
this?
same thing.
It's
Cause
just no. It's like you're looking better consistently, man.
Thanks, man.
well, not only that, but I mean, you're paying attention now. I think like you're dressing better. Like period.
Yeah.
No, this,
Andrew's like you used to dress like a child,
No,
but now
not at
you're dressing
all.
like an adult. I'm joking.
that's not what I meant at all, dude.
joking.
It's just I'm getting closer to the size I tell myself and the size I actually am.
Yes.
So I'm a little closer to the 5. So yeah.
Yeah,
We're working.
I was texting Russell during the show. I was like, man, maybe he can slide in here
Sick. Okay,
to ask
cool.
a question to
Yeah.
Dr. Nadolsky.
Yeah, definitely.
Nadolsky.
Spencer.
So I'm,
Spencer.
to your point, losing a little bit of weight,
Yeah.
gaining even less muscle, getting a little bit of healthier, you know? Yeah.
You're gaining a good amount of muscle, dude. You're in the gym. Like I see you in the gym lifting all the time. So it's fucking dope.
He's got some sunlight on him too. His face is looking good.
You like
Arms
that?
are looking good.
It's these,
getting a little tan.
I heard from someone to take these, what are they called? 10-minute walks?
Oh yeah.
Outside. And Chris is always saying peel. So I've been peeling with Chris.
Peeling?
Being this big and walking around your block with no shirt on, I get looks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've been peeling lately. Yeah.
The confidence though. I mean, me personally, like I have a hard time taking my shirt off walking with these guys, but like that's huge. What did that feel like?
Well, I mean, whenever you go to the pool, I mean, like the sooner you kind of like go, listen, I mean, I know I'm kind of a fatty, kind of, but I just gotta like live my best life, love me as who I am, and still effort to be better. It just makes a big difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We just got told about Obesity Week, and we had to apologize because we started to laugh. But we were thinking Obesity Week. It kind of felt like we get to eat whatever we want. What do you think when you hear Obesity Week?
Like, okay, I have a multifaceted opinion about this, right? Like, again, you want to love yourself, you want to be good to yourself, but like being fat in and of itself is not like any admirable quality, right? The level of it being like, I'm so nervous. The level of it being like a negative is, I mean, it affects your health. I think sometimes some of these moral judgments that get associated with it
Yeah.
are a little off-putting, right? Because they may or may not be true, right? But in all cases, they're not true,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, yeah, like you want to see clothing companies that have shirts for fatties, right? And I think that's just good business, but like the clout chasing part of it, it's kind of insultive and sort of like
You mean like brands like posting pictures of just like really large people or something like. Is that what you mean? The clout chasing, like, ooh, we're also in support. Is that what you mean?
yeah, like you don't want. I mean, I've had people say, well, hey, like I've been told you shouldn't be on the church drama team because you're fat, and we don't want to put that out to the world, right? So,
God damn.
I mean, so like there's just such a wide margin. You know, extreme attitudes on any side usually sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to find like the common sense middle. So, yeah.
And do you think some of the common sense middle has kind of been lost?
I mean, it's just a common sense society we live in, right? There's common sense seems to be out the door.
Streams.
It doesn't get attention, right? Yeah.
I think you know, something that's you and I talk about quite a bit. It's I guess people don't know how to like. I don't think that people understand what it's like to be a heavier person and what it's like I think it's hard for people to gain perspective and you've given me wonderful perspective because we've had so many conversations about it. But like my urges are just, they're different than yours.
Right.
You know, and I think that when we talk about like pain, like we know better than to judge your pain versus my pain.
Right.
My brother dying versus you having someone die in your life. There's no reason for us to compare those things. Maybe something hit me differently at a different time, or maybe something hit you differently at a different time. Maybe you have a different interpretation of those things. But when you go through a time where you're thinking about making a decision towards eating something that you already know is not in your best interest, how fucking hard is that for you to block? And are you getting a little bit more successful at it, or does it sometimes feel like, because you've lost like 60 pounds, maybe even a little bit more. You were 505 or 515, if you don't mind me saying.
Right. I was like 5'10", 5'50". Yeah.
Yeah. And now you're 456 this morning.
456, yes.
Fuck
right.
yeah.
Thanks, man. So, right, this distinction between hunger and appetite is real. Like, hunger is pretty manageable, right? You feel the sensations of hunger in your gut. It's a little rumble in the tummy, a little uncomfortable. You're like, oh, I'm hungry, I should eat, or I want to eat, or whatever. But appetite is like a different thing. Appetite, I was listening to your guest today, and like, I feel appetite in the back of my head. It's like a tingle. It's a drive. It's a drive, like, you're stressed. You're stressed, you need to eat. If you're stressed, you need to eat. It's broken. I mean, and I know it's broken, but sometimes, and I was trying to explain this to Mark the other day, I get nervous.
You can be as nervous as you'd like, and you can cry, and you can laugh, and you can get mad. You can do whatever you'd like.
All this panic, flop sweat, I'm just going to say it's tears, and it'll be fully accepted. But like, sometimes you get stressed, and then you're dealing with like the nuances of that stress, and then like this new monster shows up. Oh, you really should eat. That will kill the stress. And then now you're fighting two fights in your own head. And it was the other night, I think I might have texted you. I literally had to yell at myself, like this internal yelling, like, stop. You are not going to act out on this desire to binge, eat trash food right now. And I hope as I get cleaner and I get better at this, and my gut biome and my neurochemistry and my pathways in my brain, that, hopefully I can form new pathways and defeat this once and for all. I certainly hope that it's not going to just be a lifetime of battles.
When you do lose, though, you're not losing the same way. Like, it's less, right? Like, when you are having a binge, from what I understand, it doesn't seem like it's anything like what you were doing maybe previously.
Yeah, I mean, it just, I identified a long time ago that there is just this, broken autopilot that drives my appetite. And whenever I let go of the wheel, it just wants to just take me to just, bad places. And I just have to fight it, Maybe you're right. Maybe the habits are starting to change. I hope so. It's been a lifelong fight. Some years I'm more focused than others in fighting this fight. This year I've been pretty focused. Last year I've been pretty focused. And the gains are coming slow, but I have to keep pushing, right? So
yeah, how long has it been? You lost about 60 pounds or so, and how long has that taken you? Because that's always the question. How long did it take?
I know. I mean, it's been like almost a year and a half.
Yeah.
But what I have gained is so much more mobility. Like, in spite of my flop sweat right now.
And the ability to walk around the block.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
We only like kind of partially walked around the building first time, I think.
I used to get very winded just going back and forth to the dumpster outside our house. Chris wanted to take me for a walk one time. We started at your front door. By the back door, I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry, but I don't want to see what happens another 100 yards down the road. And he was always really cool about it and so forth. And now we do the walk. We do the 1 mile walk. So, I mean, my mobility, my ability to stay active and hold a little certain level of just not being, of light activity has really gone up a lot. And like, of course, I want to lose more weight and I want to open up more opportunities in my life. I want to go on a roller coaster someday, right? With my kids. But just being able to go walk, and I mean, I know it sounds so silly.
No, it doesn't.
It can be so easily taken for granted, but I was right on the edge. I was pretty immobile before COVID. COVID hit. I got super paranoid, big fatty. Everything inside said, you need to, this now or never, right? Now or never. But I just found myself staying inside all the time, ordering food in, afraid to go out and get COVID. Didn't like to wear the mask because you think I look bad right now. I get so claustrophobic when I wear a mask.
Yeah.
I feel my hot air coming back in my face. You're in the checkout aisle in the grocery store. Everyone's like, oh, look at the fatty. What's the fatty got in their grocery cart, right? And everyone wants to get so tight. And I would just have these, like this panic attack right now is a mild one. I would have major ones at the grocery store. I started ordering everything in. And like, I don't know if I've even told you, I'm like about 15 pounds away from losing my COVID weight. That's how bad, I gained just over a year. I gained like 80 pounds in just over a year. So, it would just, but what do you do, right? You don't roll over.
Yeah.
I have things I want to do in my life. I have kids to love and look after, a wife I want to share my life with.
That's been the cool thing, is that you've still been doing it.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about that. Like the only way for you to fail or for you to lose is for you to quit.
Right, exactly.
And you haven't quit. Like
Right.
you might have a day that's bad. You might have 2 days that's bad, or whatever it might be. Still get back on plan. Like you're checking in with me and my brother. We're kind of starting to do that for each other, like every day, and just trying to stay on top of it. Because if you don't stay out in front of it, what could happen is not great, right?
Yeah, I mean, it snowballs fast, right? It snowballs fast. I just have to be very intentional and learn how to fight this fight against the appetite better, right? Have a plan, have healthier sources to relieve my stress, call, text a buddy, go for a walk, do other things. So ignore that thing that says, hey, you need to eat your feelings right now. And I was telling you guys this the other day, eating your feelings is such like a passive way to say it to people that you kind of hope they'll understand without diving too deep in it. But when you dive deep in it, man, it's nasty. It's really nasty.
What would your advice be to somebody who's like younger and like, it's like they're quite overweight, or they're younger and obese, and when we're young, I think I have a lot of time for a lot of shit, right? Right. Well, what would your advice be to that type of person?
I think you don't know what you're doing to your joints. I think you don't know how, and I wasn't an athletic kid, but I was able to play a little bit of football as a kid, right? You could run a little bit. And you feel like a tank, you feel indestructible. You're the kid in the neighborhood that other people jump on your shoulder and you carry him around, and that's like, oh, wow, Russell can carry all three of us? Well, they only weigh 80 pounds and I weigh 140. Yeah, of course. So, and you feel indestructible, right? You're in your 20s and people go, no, you can't move. And you go, I'm pretty fast for a big guy. And you move and you show them like, okay, pretty fast, not fast, but faster than what they thought. And then all of a sudden,
you still move pretty well, and you're strong. You're very strong.
Very strong.
I'm strong for a guy that doesn't work out.
You work out, dog.
That's the problem. And then like all of a sudden, man, you just lose it. I don't know if it's your stem cells or your mitochondria, whatever. You just don't recover. Whatever damage you did to your tendon, to your ankle, it just doesn't come back as fast as it did before. You start compounding little tiny injuries. And either you have like a big one or you just get tore apart and you stop moving and it just gets worse, and you keep eating big and you're not moving anymore. And then it just gets out of control.
So you thought you had time and you really didn't.
So to these young people that think it's okay to like glorify obesity and to like normalize it, like, yeah, we want to love each other. These moral judgments of who someone is, I'm constantly annoyed at it, right? And it goes up and down the chain of influencers of who says that sort of stuff. But I would say like obese people can be smart, they can be strong, they can be driven, they can have iron wills, but it's not in people can find attractiveness in different bodies.
Yeah.
But being obese, we're not talking thick with 3 C's. Being obese is not good for your body, breaks down your joints, shortens your lifespan. Don't glamorize it. So, yeah.
What about people that are kind of fake fat, like people that aren't that fat? Like sometimes when you see somebody talking about like the fat movement or whatever, you sometimes like, this person ain't even that fat. Like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Well, I mean, that's just sort of like we've idolized with social media these 1 in a million people. And we consider them the norm, right? I'm not looking at you. I'm not looking at you. I'm not looking at you.
Until you said that, I didn't think you were, but now I'm like, did he look at me for like a few seconds extra?
There was a pause.
And and I think we've thrown out the BMI scale a long time ago. So there's a lot of like it's a muddy conversation, right? So I don't mind fake fatties. Fake fatties, fake natties. I'm cool.
Russ throwing shade.
Great.
Hey, how did we get here? what is your favorite food? Like what, you know, like what?
Okay.
Let's transition.
What are some things that
Let's go.
Okay, here we go.
No, you're not. Don't get too excited about it.
I can't. God bless her. Grandma's famous spaghetti sauce is gone. It left with her. Yeah.
She didn't share the recipe,
I mean, I've seen it.
but it's not the same.
Nowhere near
You start with tomato paste. You throw in like about 2 pounds of a chunk of cheddar cheese and some seasoning, and you just let it simmer all day long. All day long. She never just like went and cracked a jar, right?
She like left the house.
Yeah. And she made about 2 gallons at a time.
Wow.
Kept it in the fridge. So it was always waiting for you. Always waiting for you. And then, once
that must have been good. It like coagulates.
Yeah,
right.
Thickens a bit. Yeah.
I became a drive-through junkie, right? After work, stressful job in sales because me not so smart and didn't do well in school, so I did sales instead. And, you start just living off a drive-through, and that's not good for you. Right.
I don't believe so.
Now, that's what you and your brother did that was so special is you guys at least kind of went on this campaign like, well, if you're stuck in the drive-through movement,
right,
at least here's how you can sort of
get that Flying Dutchman,
get the Flying Dutchman, go protein style, lettuce wraps. And that's sort of like how I got reintroduced to the Bell Bros, right? And I mean, I'd seen Chris's movies, I'd seen you guys on Joe Rogan, but then I see your guys' Instagram and you're like, no, the war on carbs, man, you can do this.
You're like, they're speaking my language.
Yeah, really are. But I mean, now drive-thrus, I've just been getting rivet. I've been transitioning to just doing as much at home as possible. So,
the hamburger salad.
Hamburger salad, you saw it, right? Hamburger salad. And I have to use a measuring cup when I grab shredded cheese. Because apparently this
is not a great measure. 7 handfuls.
I guess that's not 1/8 of an ounce. I don't know. It's probably right. So
you have big hands
just
too, bro.
Round up. That's all.
Hey.
Thank you.
So grandma's spaghetti sauce. What else we got?
Okay, so you want to know? I'm a salt guy, not a sweet guy.
Oh.
So I mean,
I think you're kind of sweet.
Thank you. Sweet for you. I mean, the salt stuff, chips, pizza,
the good
stuff like that.
What kind of chips?
Okay, so what day of the week is it? What are we doing? Are we watching a movie? We watching NFL?
Watching UFC.
Is it you didn't want to make dinner, so you're getting some Fritos and some bean dip?
Oh, bean. Okay, wait, keep going.
Fritos are healthy. They only have 3 ingredients.
Okay, but listen, nothing gives me heartburn in the world like Fritos corn chips. It's like the only thing that gives me heartburn. But
dude, but those big thick ones, scoops, those are
with the bean dip,
dude. Yes.
I know.
And what kind of cheese on top of the bean dip, though?
Oh yeah, you're so bougie. I am a lowbrow human. I just crack the can and go to work.
Wait, you're just a straight Frito guy?
With bean dip.
With bean, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. He doesn't want the cheese with the bean dip because he doesn't want to like muffle the bean dip flavor.
And listen, I'm not mad at it. I will still go at a can of Pringles.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of Pringles. I'm not afraid of Pringles.
Pringles are dangerous.
Yeah.
Good.
Dog.
Yeah.
What about pizza? How do you like your pizza?
Large.
Are you mainly like a cheese pizza guy, or specialty thing going on?
Listen, and I will die on this hill. Best pizza you can get is ham, bacon, onions, pineapple.
Okay.
I'll die on that hill. I don't care what you say. You can Russell, hey, we have some pepperoni and mushrooms. Do you want it? Yeah, sure. Yes. Yeah. The answer is always yes. But ham, bacon, onions, and pineapple, that's really my guy.
Ham and bacon.
Oh yeah.
Have you guys ever just gotten all the meats? Whenever I get pizza, ham, bacon.
That'll give you some heartburn.
Add some pepperoni, add some ground beef. Like there's these spots where you can just
keep going.
Ooh, it's just
go
all
on.
meat. You know?
Boy, what was the name of that pizza place that was over here? Do you remember?
It had. It had like a dumb name.
Pork on the. Yeah, we could never remember what
it was like.
Woman's name?
It was like Western something,
Oh,
and we're
yeah.
like, "Oh, is this barbecue?" And it's like, "No, it's pizza," and it was really
Dude,
good.
we're
pizza.
lucky it closed. It was down the street from here.
Yeah.
He takes me out. He always keeps me online. He always makes sure I'm on the team whenever he takes me out. We try to have lunch together maybe every
Go
couple
for like
of weeks.
a BBQ.
BBQ is a nice way to go. I'm still not opposed to having the big salad, right? Big salad. I mean, I know that people question it. Is that optimal? It's a lot better than the French fries. So yeah, I'm working towards that. But yeah.
So you're lifting. You're getting in some 10-minute walks.
Right.
Right.
A lot of what I've been doing lately too is just trying to fix a lifetime of being obese and being couch surfing, and my hips were pretty messed up. So I spent about the last 9 months just getting into all these different stretchings that I've learned watching your podcast, Chris and Andrew, Andrew's Instagram, and the Goda guys. There's a lot of the opening up the hips and getting more mobility, which helps, right? That's been a big part of it. Just trying to be able to walk without pain. You know, once you're and I will say I've noticed in the last few months, seems like I'm not dealing with like the chronic feet pain.
Yeah, your
and knee
feet were
pain.
really bothering you a lot, right?
Really bad. I mean, really, really bad. It's not as bad. And it might just be like maybe I'm back under a certain level of weight where my body, you know, is handling a little bit better. A lot of knee strengthening.
You're walking more, so your feet are definitely getting stronger.
I'm not walking a whole lot more.
Okay.
I'm riding some bikes here and there, lifting here and there.
Yeah, we've talked about this a bunch because, like, how do you exercise if your feet are banged up? And we just kind of decided, let's maybe not worry about too much walking unless you feel really good. Instead, we'll get on a bike.
I don't sleep very well, so I use this Fitbit to track my sleep. But I do see value in the heart rate and the pedometer thing. And I start getting chronically over 8, 9, 10,000 steps, and my feet start to fit. So if I'm feeling ambitious, then I get on my bicycle and go from there.
And we talked about that before too, where it's like, even if you get ambitious, let's be maybe a little careful because we don't want to be ambitious on Monday and then be half dead by Wednesday.
That's what a lot of people I've bounced across in social media, they recognize this, you know, middle-aged older guy that at least at some point could move around a little bit, had it and trying to get it back. And a lot of people identify with that. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to, you know, you gotta check your ego out. You know, this work hard, train hard. I mean, middle age sometimes starts playing a role in that conversation if you haven't taken care of yourself along the way. Right. And so I'm trying to make up for lost ground right now. So I want to work hard, train hard. You know what I mean? Like I want that, but you know, I start feeling my ego in any way in your gym. So that's why a lot of times I don't go to the open gym. I'm blessed enough to have access to your gym. Thank you. Kind of whenever the sun's up.
Whenever you want.
And I have to honor my pace. You know, so Team Turtle, train slow, start low. You know what I mean? Like I have to do all that stuff. So, and otherwise it's not, you know, the knees, ankle, feet, that pain is a mother. Wow. I mean, people really undersell what chronic pain can do to your life.
You told me that it's humiliating, being trapped by the thoughts that you're trapped by.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Who wants to admit that there's this like Mr. Hyde in your own ear yelling at you to do crazy stuff, right?
But that's what it feels like. It feels like someone else is like almost kind of controlling.
Yeah, I mean, of course there's the whole this whole idea that my obesity is very multifaceted, Mark. I mean, sometimes, yeah, sure, the fight is like, I just don't want to like pig out, eat French fries, whatever. A lot of times it's, oh my God, I'm stressed. Oh, you should eat. That would fix your stress. It's wild. It's insane. And it's a battle that sometimes you don't want to fight.
Does it feel like it works? Like when you do eat, does it feel like when you're done kind of eating something, do you feel like some sort of release? Or,
sure.
Or are you just like, fuck, man, why
both, right?
That? Yeah.
Both. Probably a little serotonin gets let in and then a little regret gets let in right after, right? So, but that monster's quieted.
Fucking deadly loop.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Brutal.
How have you handled, because we were talking about this earlier with Spencer, because I can't think of his last name. Nadolsky, sorry, sir. Because he was giving the analogy of like, oh, I popped one tire, so I'm going to go slash the other tires. So like when that voice comes and then you do answer him, how do you get back on your horse and be like, no, fuck that guy. Like, I'm going to finish the day strong, or even tomorrow I'm going to start strong and, not even pay attention to that voice.
You have to, I think you have to seek inspiration. You have to like, you know, there are some good benefits to social media, right? You find somebody like Mark, somebody that you admire, someone you follow. I mean, I could honestly, I don't want to start the list because it just won't end. But you find someone that's out there doing it. You find someone that's giving you a piece of good coaching. You get some sleep, right? Sleep it off, wake up, fresh perspective. And you have to know your whys. Every day you have to know, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And maybe that's a cliche, but I think it's really true. So, I mean, you have to get up, try again, right? Because like you said, it only fails if you stop trying, right? I'm not like impressed with the gains I've made. I don't think I've made like super fast, impressive gains, but I'm proud and I'm happy. I'm not content, but I'm happy. I feel good. I can move better. I feel good that I can get in a 20, 30, 45 minute workout of just steady movement and not walk away from it limping, you know?
Yes.
That's important, right? That's really important. But having a plan, you can't, you have to have a plan on what the diet is, right? Some people don't seem to know how to wing the diet. You can't just, you know, you have to have a plan and you have to do everything to stick to the plan, right? I don't have a natural intuitiveness on how much to eat and what to eat. I know that there's a lot of conversations on, you know, eat intuitively and just.
You do track your stuff, right?
I do. Yeah, I track my stuff.
You've tried to like not track it, and then you just found that like tracking it works great. Works best for you.
I find counting the calories just helps. It just keeps my mindfulness. Anything to keep that autopilot from kicking in, because that autopilot messes me up, right?
Right.
So you don't want to become obsessive about it. There's a balance to everything. Yeah. So yeah.
Have you found that like I don't know, you had to leave a certain like maybe identity behind? Because I know like I'll just use myself as an example. Well, you love video games too. I love video games. I can't fuck with video games. The more successful this podcast gets, the less video games I get to play.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a bummer, but I also am in a way better place now. So I know a lot of people that when it comes to making big life changes, they almost don't want to because they're kind of scared of who maybe they could become. But do you feel like you had to leave anyone behind? Anyone as far as like, I mean, yourself? Like, did you have to leave somebody behind and be like kind of more uncomfortable with things?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I started getting into games a few years ago again because I was stay-at-home dad with my kids. My kids were in their therapy and taking them, you know, Mr. Dad and all that stuff. And I needed a hobby. I needed some communication with people, but I found it just became too much of a life suck, you know. My kids need to do their homework, and instead of me helping them with their homework, I'm like, I got to get on with the fellas and do my games tonight. I've gamed all but none these last couple months just because it was it become a distraction for me. So you got to let those things behind you, right? And also I speculated. I get super tilted for your gamers out there that know what that means, and then that seemed like I'm stressed. I want to eat. Like, the night's over. Let me eat. Let me watch some TV. Let me put on Mark Bell's Power Project and learn about being healthy while I eat these chips, right? So I had to let it go. Yeah, I had to let it go.
Yeah, it's maybe a habit forming, right? Because the game and the food maybe go together a little bit.
I'm identifying stress and food go together really, and anything that brings stress brings and that might even be like a broader definition of stress. Like people talk about positive life events as stressful, right? I have to break that connection.
Talking can be stressful, like just doing this show. Like even though we're used to it, we talk a lot. You know, you do two every day for a couple days in a row, and it can manifest, and you might not want it to show up. You might have a nice interpretation of it, but it still most likely is going to show up somewhere.
Right. Yeah, it's leaving your old self behind. I mean, taking up new habits, right? And these are some of the. I think I discredited the ritual benefits of the 10-minute walks in the morning. I really did at first, but those are the kind of things. This new endeavor, this new life that you're trying to live to better yourself, and probably 99% of your listeners don't need a complete reset like I need in my life. Just for some people, it's just probably just trying to get a little bit better, a little healthier. Those things help. They move the needle. I mean, I'm learning it. I was very skeptical I was very skeptical, but I mean, since doing that stuff, the change has been coming. So
yeah, what I'm excited about is that you're right in the zone where I believe that you are craving the movement.
right.
You know, and I know sometimes you're deterred from it because it's 5,000 degrees outside, or a knee or foot or something might bother you. But for the most part, you've been wanting to move more. You're talking about your bike. You know, you'll send me a picture of like your bike. You're like, I biked today. You'll send me a video of you lifting in your garage gym. Like, so you built a gym at your house. Like, you've gone through these. You've gone out of your way to make movement a part of your daily routine.
Right. Well, I mean, I know the whys. I'm not walking 30 yards to get to my garage and going, oh my God, this feels far. I know the whys. Training brings freedom for me. You know, it does, because I know what sitting on the couch all day does. Makes my hips sore, makes me weaker and fatter, can't move around. And again, I know a lot of people aren't in my spot, but I know, quite a few are. And unfortunately, that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Right. And for me, I want to be clear, it wasn't my lack of movement that brought this to me, though. It was my binge eating, you know, and I think the binge eating sort of took away my movement. And now as I fight them both, I'm getting victory.
You kind of always liked the gym, right? For a pretty long time.
I mean, I've always, you know, I played a little bit of football and
former military.
I was in the Army for a while. Yeah. I said I wanted to see the world, and I saw Alabama. So, I mean, it's so far back for me now. These men and women, what they do, it's nothing like what I did. I was in and out before anything happened. But but go for a run, do some push-ups, do some flutter kicks. They do a whole different set of stuff now. But yeah. So
very cool. Andrew, take us on out of here, buddy.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode. Please drop us some comments. This conversation got pretty deep. That was really nice. So let us know what you guys think about today's episode, and make sure you guys like today's episode and subscribe if you guys are not subscribed already. Please follow the podcast at MB Power Project on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. My Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter is at I am Andrew Z. And Nsima, where are you at?
Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube. I'm Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Go to the Discord now. Over 2,000 people. Killing it.
A lot of people.
Russ, where can people find you?
Russell Buddy on all the social medias and on the Chris Bell Show.
Hey.
On all of your favorite podcast forums.
I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.
Bye.